Did you know that the average American senior has accumulated over 10,000 items in their home? It's true. And the shocking part? Studies show we only actively use about 20% of what we own. Those extra 8,000 items aren't serving you. They're silently stealing your freedom, peace of mind, and even your health. I'm about to share 5 harsh truths about decluttering that most experts won't tell you, but that could completely transform your golden years. Meet Eleanor, a 72-year-old retired nurse from Minnesota who I worked with last year. After losing her husband of 46 years, she found herself drowning in a lifetime of possessions. "I couldn't even open my hall closet without something falling on me," she confessed. "But every time I tried to let go of anything, I felt this crushing guilt, like I was somehow betraying Bob's memory or erasing our life together." Eleanor's story might sound familiar. Maybe you've downsized to a smaller home but brought along decades of possessions. Perhaps you're maintaining items just in case your children might want them someday. Or you might be holding on to things that represent who you once were, rather than who you are now. Over the next few minutes, I'll share the 5 uncomfortable decluttering truths that finally helped Eleanor reclaim not just her space, but her sense of possibility. These aren't the gentle, feel-good tips you'll find in most videos. These are the difficult realizations that actually create lasting change. By the end, you'll understand why traditional decluttering advice fails most seniors, and you'll have a completely new framework for your relationship with your possessions. Before we dive in, I'd love to know, have you ever felt physically and emotionally weighed down by decades of accumulated stuff? Drop a comment below. Your experience might help someone else feel less alone in their struggle. If you're ready for some straight talk about clutter that could change your life, hit that like button and subscribe. I share new videos every week with practical wisdom specifically for seniors ready to live their best life. Let's get started with harsh truth number 1. The first harsh truth Eleanor had to face is something many of us find deeply unsettling. Your memories aren't actually stored in your physical possessions. This truth strikes at the heart of why decluttering is so emotionally challenging for our generation. Eleanor's home had become a museum of memories. Every drawer contained birthday cards from decades past. Closets overflowed with her children's school projects. Shelves sagged under the weight of photo albums and mementos. When I suggested removing any of these items, Eleanor's response was immediate and emotional. "These things are my memories. If I get rid of them, I'll lose those precious moments forever." This is where neuroscience offers us a fascinating perspective. Dr. Jennifer Harman, who specializes in memory research, explains it this way. Our brains don't store memories in objects. Objects simply serve as triggers for memories that are actually encoded in our neural pathways. What's more interesting is that we don't need to keep every trigger to preserve the memory. Let me repeat that. We don't need to keep every trigger to preserve the memory. Eleanor initially rejected this idea completely, but then we tried an experiment that changed everything. We selected a box of greeting cards from her late husband, items she considered absolutely essential to preserving his memory. Before removing a single card, we photographed each one, capturing both the handwritten message inside and any special design elements. A week later, I asked Eleanor to describe her favorite memory associated with those cards. She pulled up the photos on her tablet and began telling me about their 40th anniversary. Her eyes filled with tears as she recalled the details of that day. The emotion, the connection, the memory, it was all still there, triggered just as powerfully by the photograph as by the physical card. I was astonished, Eleanor told me later. I realized I wasn't actually losing the memory by letting go of the physical item. In fact, I could access these memories more easily because they weren't buried in boxes I never opened. This revelation led to a practical solution that might help you too. Eleanor created what we call memory anchors, rather than keeping every memory-related item. 1. She made one dedicated memory box for each loved one or significant life chapter. Not 10 boxes, just one. 2. She kept only the items that triggered the richest, most meaningful memories. 3. For everything else, she took high-quality photographs before finding new homes for the physical items. 4. She created digital memory books that her grandchildren now actually engage with when they visit. unlike the boxes in the attic they never saw. Dr. Sarah Collins, a geriatric psychologist, explains why this approach works. As we age, we often intensify our relationship with possessions as symbols of our identity and life story. Learning to separate the memory from the object itself isn't just practical, it's psychologically liberating. It helps us carry our past more lightly. What about you? Is there a collection of memory-laden items you've been keeping that might serve you better as photographs? Could you experiment with digitizing one category of mementos while preserving just a few physical anchors? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'm curious which items feel most challenging to transform in this way. The second harsh truth that Eleanor had to confront hits home for many of us. Decluttering requires making actual decisions, not just organizing what you already have. This distinction is critical, yet most of us miss it entirely. For years, Eleanor thought she was addressing her clutter problem. She'd spend weekends cleaning up, meticulously arranging items in color-coded bins, installing new shelving systems, and labeling everything with her trusty label maker. Her home looked organized on the surface, but cupboards and closets were still bursting at the seams. I was exhausted from constantly managing my stuff, Eleanor admitted. I'd organized the same areas repeatedly, but somehow they'd always become messy again within weeks. Here's the reality check that changed everything for Eleanor. Organizing is simply rearranging what you already have, while decluttering requires deciding what actually deserves to stay in your life. One maintains the status quo, the other transforms it. The breakthrough moment came when Eleanor calculated how much she'd spent on storage solutions in the previous year alone. She was shocked to discover it exceeded $400. Money literally spent to store things she rarely or never used. Even more eye-opening was when we counted her storage containers: 37 plastic bins, 12 decorative boxes, and 8 underbed storage containers. I realized I was paying a premium in money, space, and peace of mind to keep things I couldn't even remember owning, she said. I was organizing clutter, not eliminating it. To break this cycle, Eleanor needed a simple but powerful decision-making framework. We developed what I call the triple filter test that she applied to every single item. 1. Do I genuinely love this item? Not just like it or feel obligated to keep it, but truly love it? 2. Have I actually used this item in the past 12 months? Not might use someday, but have demonstrably used recently? 3. If I saw this in a store today, would I buy it again at full price? If an item didn't get 3 clear yes answers, it had to go. No exceptions, no maybe pile, no I'll decide later. This framework forced Eleanor to make real decisions rather than postponing them. The results were dramatic. In just 2 focused weekends, Eleanor removed over 200 pounds of items from her home, things she had been carefully organizing and reorganizing for years, without ever questioning whether they deserved to stay in her life at all. The triple filter test changed my relationship with my possessions, Eleanor told me. Instead of asking, where should I put this? I started asking, why am I keeping this? That small shift in thinking made all the difference. What about you? Are you an organizer or a declutterer? Take a moment to consider. When was the last time you purchased a storage container versus the last time you filled a donation box? That ratio might reveal whether you're making decisions or just rearranging. Share your honest assessment in the comments. Are you organizing or truly decluttering? The third harsh truth is perhaps the most emotionally challenging for many seniors. Your children and grandchildren likely don't want most of your possessions. This reality can feel like rejection, but understanding it can actually strengthen family relationships and free you from unnecessary burden. Eleanor had designated entire sections of her home as for the kids someday. She maintained complete sets of formal china that hadn't been used in 15 years. Crystal glassware remained carefully wrapped in original boxes. 3 collections of figurines gathered dust on dedicated shelves. Her basement housed furniture she disliked, but kept because it's been in the family for generations. When I suggested she might confirm whether her children actually wanted these items, Eleanor was resistant. Of course they want them, she insisted. These things represent our family history. The reality check came when Eleanor finally had honest conversations with her 3 adult children. She was stunned to discover they only wanted a few select items with personal meaning. Most of what she'd been preserving for them held little appeal. Her daughter gently explained, "Mum, my house is already full, and frankly, my style is completely different. Those china patterns feel very formal to me, and I'd never use them. What matters to me are the handwritten recipes and the quilt Grandma made." This isn't unique to Eleanor's family. We're witnessing a significant generational shift in attitudes toward possessions. Today's younger adults generally prefer experiences over things, digital over physical, and minimalism over accumulation. They're more mobile, live in smaller spaces, and have different aesthetic preferences. Estate attorney Martin Reynolds confirms this trend. "The biggest source of family tension I see isn't about money, it's about physical possessions. Parents assume their children want the good stuff, while children dread inheriting items they don't want, but feel guilty discarding." Rather than feeling rejected, Eleanor took a proactive approach. She hosted what we called a legacy day, where she shared the stories behind meaningful items and asked which specific pieces actually resonated with each family member. She discovered her grandson treasured the fishing tackle box but had zero interest in the antique desk. Her daughter-in-law loved the family recipe collection, but didn't want the silver serving pieces that required polishing. For items no one wanted, Eleanor made peace with finding new homes, selling valuable pieces, donating useful items, and simply letting go of things that had served their purpose in her life. The unexpected benefit? Her children's palpable relief. They weren't being insensitive about our family history, Eleanor realized. They had actually been worried about eventually having to sort through everything themselves. By decluttering now, I was giving them a gift, freedom from future guilt and burden. Eleanor's daughter later confided, "I'd been having anxiety about someday having to deal with all Mum's stuff while grieving her loss. Knowing she's handling this now means I can focus on making memories with her instead of worrying about her things." What about you? Have you had the who wants what conversation with your family yet? It might feel uncomfortable, but it could be one of the most loving things you do for them. Share in the comments if you've had this discussion, or what's holding you back from starting it. Remember, your most valuable legacy isn't in your possessions, but in your relationships. The fourth harsh truth cuts to the heart of aging well. Decluttering isn't just about aesthetics or tidiness. It's a genuine health necessity. This perspective shift made all the difference for Eleanor. For years, Eleanor viewed decluttering as a purely optional project, something she should do eventually but could easily postpone. "I'll get around to it when I have more energy," she'd tell herself. "It's not really that important." What Eleanor didn't realize was that her cluttered home was creating actual health hazards that were affecting her daily life in significant ways. Let's talk about the physical reality first. A cluttered home creates multiple health risks that become increasingly dangerous as we age. Fall risks are perhaps the most serious concern. The CDC reports that 1 in 4 seniors falls each year, and falls are the leading cause of fatal injuries for older adults. Eleanor's pathways were narrowed by excess furniture, with small items frequently on the floor. This wasn't just untidy, it was genuinely dangerous. Respiratory issues also emerge from cluttered environments. Dust accumulates on rarely moved possessions, creating air quality problems. Eleanor noticed her chronic cough would worsen during certain seasons, not realizing it was connected to the dust harbored in her densely packed possessions. Physical strain from navigating around and constantly rearranging heavy items puts unnecessary stress on aging bodies. Eleanor was exhausting herself just maintaining her belongings. Beyond these physical concerns, the emotional impact of clutter is equally significant. Research from the Mayo Clinic shows that physical clutter creates mental clutter. Studies have documented that living in disorganized, overcrowded spaces directly correlates with elevated cortisol, stress hormone levels that remain high throughout the day, higher rates of anxiety and depression, difficulty focusing and making decisions, poorer sleep quality, increased social isolation due to embarrassment about home conditions. The wake-up call for Eleanor came in a dramatic way. She tripped over a stack of magazines she'd been meaning to sort through and sprained her wrist badly. During her doctor's visit, Dr. Patel didn't mince words. "Your clutter is now a safety issue. At your age, a fall could lead to much worse outcomes than a sprain. This medical perspective helped Eleanor see decluttering not as an optional aesthetic project, but as an essential health intervention, as important as taking her medications or doing her physical therapy exercises. As Eleanor gradually cleared her space, starting with pathways and high traffic areas, something remarkable happened. Her chronic headaches decreased in frequency. She slept more soundly. Her blood pressure readings at medical checkups improved consistently. Perhaps most significantly, she began inviting friends over again for the first time in years. I hadn't realized how much my cluttered home was isolating me, she admitted. I was turning down invitations because I couldn't bear the thought of reciprocating and having people see how I was living. Eleanor's approach was practical and prioritized. 1. She started with safety-critical areas, clearing pathways, removing trip hazards, and ensuring emergency exits were accessible. 1. She then addressed air quality issues by removing dust-collecting items like excess textiles and papers. 1. Finally, she focused on the aesthetic and organizational aspects. What about you? Have you noticed any physical or emotional changes that might be connected to your living environment? Perhaps tension headaches that ease when you're away from home, or anxiety that spikes when you look at certain rooms. Share your observations in the comments. Your experience might help someone else make an important connection about their health. Remember, creating a safer, clearer environment isn't vanity. It's a vital part of healthy aging that deserves to be prioritized. The fifth and final harsh truth Eleanor had to accept was that decluttering isn't a one-and-done project. It's an ongoing practice and mindset shift. This truth became evident after her initial success, when areas of her home began filling up again within just a few months. I was so disappointed in myself, Eleanor confessed. I'd worked so hard to clear out all that clutter, and somehow it was creeping back in. I couldn't understand what was happening. Here's the reality that most decluttering experts won't tell you. The reason most decluttering efforts ultimately fail is that people treat the symptom, too much stuff, rather than the cause, habits and mindset around acquiring and keeping. Without addressing these root causes, the clutter invariably returns, often leaving you feeling more defeated than before. Eleanor's revelation came when she started tracking her acquisition patterns. I realized I was still shopping when I was sad or bored, she admitted, and I was saying yes to every free item offered by friends and family. My grandson would ask if I wanted his old coffee maker when he upgraded, and I'd say yes even though I already had two that worked perfectly fine. These unconscious habits were sabotaging her hard-won progress. The breakthrough came when Eleanor recognized that maintaining a clutter-free home required a system, not just willpower or occasional cleaning sprees. What worked for Eleanor was establishing what I call a preservation protocol, 5 specific habits that protect your space from clutter, creep. 1. One in, one out. For every new item that enters her home, an equivalent item must leave. A new blouse means an old one gets donated. A new book means an old one finds a new home. 2. The 24-hour rule. For non-essential purchases over $50, Eleanor waits 24 hours before buying. This simple pause eliminates most impulse purchases, as the emotional urge to buy typically fades. 3. Weekly reset. Every Sunday afternoon, Eleanor spends just 15 minutes returning items to their proper homes. This prevents small piles from becoming overwhelming projects. 4. Monthly review. Once a month, she identifies 5 items that no longer serve her well to remove from her home. This steady outflow prevents accumulation. 5. Seasonal refresh. 4 times a year, she evaluates seasonal items before storing them. Holiday decorations that weren't used, summer clothes that weren't worn, all evaluated honestly before being stored for another year. The most profound change wasn't in Eleanor's closets or cabinets. It was in her thinking. She shifted from seeing possessions as sources of security or comfort to seeing open space as the true luxury. Empty space gives me room to breathe, to move, to live, she explains now. I used to see an empty shelf as something to fill. Now I see it as something to protect. 2 years after beginning her decluttering journey, Eleanor's home remains comfortable and manageable. More importantly, she reports feeling lighter both physically and emotionally. I'm not controlled by my things anymore, she says, and that's given me freedom I haven't felt in decades. I spend less time cleaning and organizing and more time living. This ongoing practice doesn't require perfection, just awareness and consistency. Eleanor still occasionally brings home something unnecessary, but now she recognizes it quickly and makes corrections before old patterns take hold again. What about you? What's one small maintenance habit you could start today to prevent clutter from returning? Could you try the 24-hour rule on purchases, or commit to a 15-minute weekly reset? Share your commitment in the comments, and we can support each other in creating sustainable, clutter-resistant homes. Today, Eleanor's home looks dramatically different. Open spaces welcome visitors, clear surfaces invite actual use. There's room to entertain friends and family again. But the most profound change is in Eleanor herself. I used to think my possessions defined me and preserved my history, she reflects now. But I've discovered that letting go has actually connected me more deeply to what truly matters: people, experiences, and the present moment. Eleanor's health has improved significantly. Her blood pressure is lower and she sleeps better. She moves through her home with ease, no more navigating around obstacles or shifting piles to find a place to sit. The constant low-grade anxiety that had become her normal state has lifted. Perhaps most tellingly, her relationships have deepened. Without the burden of managing so many possessions, she has more energy for people. Her adult children visit more often, and her grandchildren actually enjoy being in her space. Before, everything was so fragile or valuable or crowded that the kids couldn't really be themselves here, Eleanor admits. Now they can spread out a board game on the coffee table or help me bake in a kitchen where the counters are actually usable. Eleanor's journey reflects a profound truth that applies to all of us as we age. Our legacy isn't in our possessions, but in our relationships, our stories, and the space we create for living fully in the present. The most valuable gift we can leave our loved ones isn't more stuff. It's our example of living unburdened and the freedom from having to sort through decades of accumulation after we're gone. As we reach our senior years, we have a unique opportunity to redefine our relationship with our possessions. We can choose to remain trapped by decades of accumulation, or we can embrace the freedom that comes with keeping only what truly enhances our current life. Eleanor puts it this way: I realized I was preserving the past at the expense of my present. Every corner filled with memories meant less space for making new ones. Once I understood that, the choice became clear. Her advice to others beginning this journey is simple but powerful. Start with the question: does this item support the life I want today? Not the life you had, not the life you might have someday, the life you're actually living right now. What would your life feel like with more open space, both physical and mental? How might your relationships deepen if you weren't constantly managing possessions? These are the questions worth reflecting on as you consider your own relationship with the things that fill your home. These 5 harsh truths about decluttering might be uncomfortable to hear, but as Eleanor discovered, facing them can transform your daily life. Remember, your memories aren't in your things. Organizing isn't decluttering. Your children likely don't want your stuff. Clutter affects your health, and maintaining a clear space is an ongoing practice. If this resonated with you, please hit the like button, subscribe to the Senior Reset, and share this video with someone who might be feeling overwhelmed by decades of possessions. Your share could be the first step in their transformation journey. Together, we can redefine what it means to live fully in our golden years.